This is Jay.
This is Bob.
And this is Steve.
And we are Alpha Quadrant 6. We are a science fiction review show. And today we are reviewing, oh my God, the robots.
You couldn't tell, yeah.
My favorite episode. This is going to be awesome.
It's actually, we were just talking, we were having dinner before. We're like, should this be one episode? Should we just say this is 3 episodes? Because we were coming up with the categories for robots, and there's quite a few.
Yeah.
So why don't we start? Everyone will name a category, and we'll discuss what that category
Well,
is.
I want to define robots first. Like, what is a robot? So, and this is, all these definitions are going to have fuzzy boundaries.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, robot is a machine, right? So it's got to be synthetic, artificial in some ways, not purely biological. It's autonomous. It has some kind of intelligence, right? It doesn't have to be fully self-aware intelligent. It's at least programmable, and it can do stuff. It can interact with the environment. It has some physicality. It's not just software, right?
Correct.
So
That's a good baseline, minimal scenario for a robot. So I like that. But then it gets more complicated when you start thinking of how we want to divide that up.
Yeah.
So are we going to talk about robots and cyborgs and androids? So how are we going to split this up? Because this is actually, you take some thought. It's not. This isn't a no-brainer. So what do you want to do? I like the idea of doing just metal robots that you can distinguish from humans. Clearly, that's not a human. Is that what we should do, or do we want to refine that even more or expand it a little bit?
I think that's a good category. So, there are robots which are android, right? Android robots, which we've been arguing about this term. It means that they look mostly human. They could be indistinguihave from human, but they're not necessarily indistinguishable.
So
from
an
human.
android.
Yeah,
Ultron is
2
an
arms,
android.
2 legs, a head, and a torso, right? They are.
Yeah, so they have a human shape.
They are humanoid robots.
But this dude
androids. Is not android.
This dude is not an android.
That's just a
Right.
robot.
That's
Now, what's the
Right.
difference between an android and a synth?
So, a subset of androids are what Asimov called humaniform,
Yes.
which are made to be indistinguishable from humans. They're made to pass, right, as human.
Right.
So that could be a synth from Fallout 4. That could be the robots from Westworld, either generation, the old or the new.
Or replicants from Blade Runner.
Replicants from Blade Runner, absolutely.
Right, so the ones that you...
And Ash
yeah.
from Alien.
But the litmus test here is... if
he's
you-
a freaking android.
No, Ash is a goddamn
robot.
robot.
If you take a knife to any of those, there's a difference. Some of them are human biologically, like
Close, very
yeah.
close.
So in Westworld, they're human on the inside. They look
Yes.
human. They have skull. They have a skull. They have
bleed.
organs. They bleed.
Yeah.
The same thing with in Blade Runner. They were actually genetically engineered human
They
parts.
were genetically
Yeah.
engineered humans.
Yeah.
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 And then in Fallout 4, the synths, you have to dissect them to find the synth components in them.
But they're really, they have big gears and components in them. Like on the outside, they look real.
on
but
the outside, they look 100% real, but you would have to do a lot to figure out that they're a synth.
What about the main character that goes with you? I mean, his face is half gone.
Well, he's an older generation synth. He's not the latest generation. The older ones are easier to tell. Remember, at some point, they got good enough that you can't tell they're a
that's
synth.
right.
but
Okay,
he's
I'm
an
forgetting.
older generation.
He's cool. I like that
Yeah.
character.
All right, but we're not talking about those guys today.
No.
Well, then wait, just to get...
And also, don't forget the androids from that Star Trek, the original series episode, where they were humaniform, they could not be, and they didn't even necessarily know that they were robots.
That's right.
They
The
were-
one that
That's
goes,
true.
that is the equation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
All right, so beyond that though, so after we have cyborgs,
Yeah.
that's a human or biological and robotic components mixed
Yes.
together.
Like Darth
So
Vader's a
they're-
cyborg.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Cyborg is a cyborg.
Yes. But if you go beyond that a little bit, how about what if you are there's biological, but you are surrounded by a robot?
Dalek.
Dalek is the classic
Yeah, so
example.
are Daleks robots, or are they aliens inside a vehicle? I think that they're driving a vehicle.
Yeah, they are. General Grievous is a robot.
He's a cyborg.
He's a cyborg?
Yeah,
Wait,
he's got enough human parts left to him that he's a cyborg.
No, I thought, all right, here's a question. Does General Grievous is there a complete person inside the armor, or does he just have some parts of his body put
No,
inside the armor?
Grievous is basically a couple of organs and then 95% robot.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
again, cyborgs are, you could be 1% robot, you could be 99% robot, but there's got to be some human, some robot.
Right,
and then
but
you're a cyborg.
right, but the Daleks are a little bit different, right? Because they're not. There's no robotic parts that are augmenting them. It's more just they're riding.
They
it's
could
really
leave
a
the-
vehicle.
they could
It's
leave
like
the
a vehicle.
Dalek.
Yeah,
They-
but the implication is they've spent so much time inside their robot exoskeletons that they're like a diminished form biologically. They're like dependent on them.
Okay,
So,
all right.
so if you're a completely self-contained organism, but you're dependent on your robot vehicle, what are you then? It's not quite a cyborg. It's not quite a robot.
And like an exobot.
An exobot.
Like an exobot, but there was that one.
How about Pike? He was a cyborg.
Well, you mean because he had the wheelchair?
Yeah.
You mean like that? You know, he couldn't. Well,
Yeah.
was it keeping him alive, or was that just
I
his
think
way
that
of
was
getting
keeping him
around?
alive.
It seemed like a
Okay.
Yeah, but if you have an artificial heart, you're a cyborg. Then it's
Yeah.
keeping you alive.
Yeah.
I think that that's just cyborg. But
Right.
the Daleks, that's a good fuzzy area. 'cause
It is. It's really
I think-
interesting, and they're
yeah.
awesome too. We got to talk about them. If not today, another show we're going to
Yeah.
talk about them because they are wonderful.
Maybe we could have a separate episode on machine, people, organism combinations, and the Daleks would be there.
Right.
But
And
we're gonna
I've got a great Dalek too with talks and everything.
So we're going to be talking today, though, about
Just saying.
100% mechanical. You said metal, but it could be ceramic
Right.
or whatever.
Sure.
True.
You know, like
And it doesn't matter how
Um,
humanoid they are.
it doesn't matter how humanoid they are.
Okay. All right, Bob, you go first.
All right, so let's. I've got like a list. Should I go?
Pick your,
you
pick
wanna
your,
hit?
pick
You
your
want
best one.
Pick
Can
my
you get-
best one. Okay. Let's see. Well, I mean, number one on my list has got to be the Terminator.
Yeah.
Terminator to me is such an iconic
Yeah, bring him out.
robot. This guy, I mean, this is an endoskeleton from the movie The Terminator from the 83 or so by James Cameron. James Cameron actually dreamed this guy up. He was filming some cheesy piranha movie, and he had a fever and he was stressed out, and he kind of dreamed this dude up, and then the movie came from that
Yeah,
moment
that's a
actually.
movie.
And to me, this is when you think of an evil, malevolent,
Relentless.
relentless, unstoppable robot that's going to rip your head off. This is the guy that comes up. It's so embedded in culture that it's inextricable.
No, the name
is not
Terminator
going anywhere.
means that,
Yeah.
right?
Right,
And that's
yeah.
what you use. You're a Terminator.
And Reese says it in the movie. He gives a very good description about them. He just
Yeah.
says they just keep coming. That's
Right.
it.
And I remember when this came out. Do you remember the movie? It was such a fantastic movie.
Yes.
Not only is it a wonderful robot, the movie itself was amazing. I remember thinking about it and talking about it for hours after the movie. This guy is one of the top robots in culture, and I think everyone will have this in a top 5 list. So I had to bring out my little pet Terminator here to talk about because he was just amazing. It took 7 artists 6 months to build the elaborate Terminator puppet that you see in the movie. When it's not stop motion and it's actually kind of lumbering around and you see it from like the waist up or so, that's a puppet that they built. It took 7 guys 6 months to build that thing. I think they could probably fab that much quicker these days. Remember, this is the early '80s, but still, that took some effort and creativity. And it's a skeleton, really. It's a skeleton robot made to look like a skeleton. The evil skull. I mean,
Because it's meant to be skinned.
Yeah.
Right.
And what
It's-
did did we coin for that? An endo.
well, it's an endoskeleton because
Yeah.
right, the skeleton's on the inside, not an
Yeah.
exoskeleton.
I think it's really cool though that the Terminator doesn't need its flesh. It was just
Right.
its sleeve, but it could operate perfectly fine without it.
And even the robots that followed it, the from T2, Terminator 2, the polymimetic alloy robot.
The
was-
T-1000?
Yeah, that thing was amazing. And even the one that followed that, the NX series, which is actually right here, the one that had the polymimetic alloy on the outside and an endoskeleton on the inside, although not as powerful as the T-1000, still I think an impressive robot. So this is definitely a top 5 robot, even number 1 on many lists.
I think the T-1000 was the first robot in the movies to actually have lines, because it told the helicopter pilot to get out.
First CG character to speak lines.
Yep.
In a movie was when it morphed through the
With
the
the
helicopter
wind, Get out.
And if next time you watch that scene, a third arm comes out to
Yeah, I
control
saw that. I
3
noticed that.
arms, which is of course
Oh, I didn't see that.
what you would do
Oh, yeah.
if you were polymimetic.
Yeah, why limit yourself to a
Oh my
human
God.
form?
What do you have, Steve?
So what do you guys got?
I mean, I have a lot of. I'm going to name a few. because they're robots that I like from video games.
Okay.
So when we talk about 2 video games, one is Fallout 4, which robots are a huge part of it. This is a post-apocalyptic world.
Now you like Fallout 4.
I like Fallout 4.
You're a wait. Steve is a ridiculous fan of Fallout 4.
Yeah.
You've played the game through twice at this point, right?
Yeah, at least twice.
Right, because you have you got the VR version.
And then I had to play it in VR.
Yeah.
Now I'm working my way through in VR. So I mean, in the game, there's an expansion where you could build your own robots.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's a huge part of the game. It's cool, and it's all retro style. You know, so it's like the 1950s vision of the future.
Here's a good retro bot right here.
Yeah, there's lots of retro bots here, but this is Cogsworth, and he's again very retro. He is constantly levitating on a flame.
Yeah, it's funny. He has like a jet engine that's
he's got a
holding him up.
jet, which doesn't make
That's resource
Makes no
intensive.
sense.
very
Make
resource intensive.
Your house would be incredibly hot when he's puttering around.
But what I like about the robots in a lot of the video games that I'm going to talk about, they have a lot of personality.
Yeah.
So Cogsworth is not very human on the outside, but he's very human on the inside. His personality, he's like a close friend, and he cares about your family, and you know what I mean? So you get very close to these robots, but I think that perhaps my 2 favorite video game robots in terms of personality are from Portal 2.
Oh yeah.
You remember them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wheatley and Gladys.
Yeah.
So Gladys is, and she's a robot.
She's the mainframe.
She's the mainframe, but she's in a robot, even though she's physically attached to a room. But
Gladys, now is Gladys the wife for real? If you know the video game.
Yes, if the backstory that they drop hints at.
Yeah.
Right. So she was, or his secretary. I think she was his secretary.
Oh, okay.
Right?
But
Yeah.
I think it ended up being his wife.
Cave Johnson.
Yeah, but so I always wondered, is it like a copy of her personality? Or
I think it's like a digital copy
It is? Okay.
that she has somewhere back in her memory banks, and that's like her good side, which she then purges at the end. Well, not spoiler, but
No, whatever. Game came out long ago.
I know, long enough. But but she's such a great foil for you playing through the game. Like just so entertaining to listen to her undermining you and insulting you throughout the game. But Wheatley is my favorite.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Robot personality, I think, in all of fiction. He's just so compelling. Yeah, he's hilarious, and
He's a bumbling idiot.
nonstop entertainment. And then of course he goes through this great arc, which is iconic for robots, right? So robots can be your friends, or they could be really evil, and sometimes the same robot could be both, right? Terminator kind of went the other way.
Right, you flip the switch.
You reprogram him. The robot from the Castle in the Sky, which is on the monitor, it was if you were the right person, right? If you were royalty, then he was your friend, and he's sweet, and he had flowers growing on him. But if you're an enemy soldier, suddenly he has laser beams shooting out his eyes, and he's very menacing. Wheatley starts off as this bumbling idiot friend helping you out, and then becomes this maniacal.
Well, because he gets control of the entire.
He gets switched out for Gladys so that he could set your character free. But then he gets immediately drunk on power and becomes. I mean,
but he maintains the humor
stupid,
the whole time.
I know, incompetent but maniacal, crazy robot.
Now I got to play.
And
It sounds so awesome.
And he had a very
Hilarious.
bad death. Yeah, his death was nasty, man.
It was great,
Yeah.
great. So that I think
Actually he doesn't, and that's what's bad about it.
he has a great end. It's not necessarily a death.
Yeah.
Right?
All right. Okay.
Do you want to bring anything else
They-
up, or
So those collectively top my list. We'll go for more, but that's good for now. So what
All
do you
right.
got, Jay?
R2D2?
Yeah.
R2D2 is like my friend. I've had him as my friend my whole life. So R2D2 was invented by. The idea of R2D2 was invented by George Lucas. George Lucas was inspired by these. Yeah, so here's R2, of course. Everybody knows who R2 is. I don't even have to do that. George Lucas was inspired by these robots from another science fiction movie, I think it was. And he wanted to have companion robots that were funny, almost slapsticky.
Yeah.
So then I love the origin of R2D2. So first off, the name came from George Lucas was on a film set, and one of the production people was saying, "I need real 2, R2, and then D2." I don't know, I forget what the D stands for, but it was like real 2 something 2. But he said, "Give me R2D2," and George Lucas was like,
Awesome.
he did literally like wrote it down and said, that's a great name.
Maybe D2 was 2 decaf coffees.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, R2-D2, his original design came from the artist Ralph McQuarrie. Now, Ralph designed pretty much all of Star Wars. I mean, at least he gave the first pass to all the things. So when you see those amazingly cool, semi-retro looking drawings and like full color, that's all Ralph. Ralph, he read the script and he just started churning these out. And what Lucas did was he took those drawings and he gave them to the film studio and said, I want to make this, and that helped make Star Wars come into being.
Yeah. I mean, droids are such an intrinsic part of Star Wars, with the whole franchise.
Absolutely,
and it distinguishes it from a lot of other franchises too. Like, there really aren't a lot of robots in Star Trek. There's a couple which I'm sure are going to come up, but yeah, but it's just the look and the feel and the vibe is the droids make it. I think R2-D2, of course, is the most famous droid, but all the droids collectively, I think, are awesome.
Absolutely,
There's something about them that represent what robots, like that one aspect of robots where they're perfect, right? Because they have a lot of different shapes and sizes, they have different purposes, they have robot-like abilities. They're totally subservient, though.
Yes.
Most of the time, except when they're programmed not
and
to be.
they've been brought completely into modern society. So people don't give them a second look. As a matter of fact, they treat them poorly.
Right.
A lot of times,
second-class citizens.
Totally.
Yeah.
So to continue with R2, so Ben Burt, who did all the sound effects for Star Wars, he voiced it. So when you hear R2 humming, and there's like a sing-songy thing, that's Ben, changing his voice. And then, of course, Kenny Baker was the person inside R2. So he did a lot of the movements and turned the head around and added to R2's personality without a doubt. So one thing about R2, though, that makes him stand apart from all the other droids in Star Wars is that R2 actually has a level of sentience that we come to find out about that makes him very special. The point here is that R2 is taken upon himself to not only help people, but he's a key player, especially in movie 4. He was a key player in the whole thing. He was relentless. He never gave up once he was told to do something. When Princess Leia said, deliver this to Obi-Wan.
Yeah, he's a special little droid.
Right, he's a special little droid. But I think R2 is a little bit more conscious than everybody else really understands.
There's one very interesting throwaway line from Obi-Wan in one of the earlier movies where he says, well, if droids could think, we'd all be in trouble, wouldn't we?
Right.
So the implication is they're not really fully self-aware in the way that biological beings are, and that's why they're still at that subservient level. Although they certainly act like they are, and some droids more than others,
And finally, just to be clear, R2 is an astromech.
Yeah.
Which is different than C-3PO, which I think is another
protocol droid.
Yeah, he's a protocol droid. C-3PO is another droid. I mean, it's all part of the Star Wars canon, but he's another droid where you kind of fall in love with him. He's got a quirky personality. He's brilliant. He's got so much information in him, and he understands a lot of things. I think, on top of it, I always likened him to like he gets the culture. He understands not just the language, but he gets a little bit of the way to talk to people. Now, C-3PO was supposed to be a used car salesman. Did you ever read that? Yeah. The character was supposed to be suave and off-putting a little bit, and a little
interesting.
Yeah, and I don't.
What a 180.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could see why they did it because he works better with R2. The relationship between the two of them.
Their relationship was awesome.
Yeah.
Again, it was iconic.
Definitely.
They're like the odd couple. In a way.
Right.
And they hate it. Well, see, everything is through C-3PO, but he hates him, and then he's going to swap his parts out to help him rebuild R2.
Right.
Like you always complain about your best friend, but you love them, right? You do anything for them. Yeah.
All right, I got another one, guys. This is for me, I could put him Iron Giant in slot 1, 2, or 3.
You love the Iron Giant.
Iron Giant's such a wonderful movie. Came out in 1999. Did you know Brad Bird made that movie? The guy who did Incredibles, Ratatouille, Incredibles 2. This guy clearly is incredible. This was very critically acclaimed, but because of I think bad marketing, it didn't find the audience that it really deserved. If you haven't seen it lately, check out Iron Giant. This guy was just so sweet and lovable and naive, right? Because after he banged his head and lost his memory, he's like a little kid. He's like a little baby in a lot of ways. 50 feet tall. Just an amazing robot voiced by Vin Diesel, who is the perfect voice for him. I what they did with him, I don't know what it was that just sucked you into this movie. I mean, Brad Bird can clearly make a movie that tugs at the heartstrings. I mean, when he flies into the air with this, and he's heading towards the nuclear missile he's going to blow up, and he's like, I'm Superman. I mean, that brings a tear to my eye every time I watch it. It's such a great robot. And then don't even get me started on when he goes all crazy at the end, and all these other weapons pop out. And this guy, not only is he big and strong, but he was devastating. His weapons they weren't really like retro. He's clearly a retro robot, but his weapons were not quite
Advanced.
retro. They were advanced and
But sometimes
devastating.
but retro does not mean primitive.
No, but
retro is a style. It's a style,
Right.
And you could still have
Exactly.
super advanced technology. Like the robots
Exactly.
from Castle in the Sky are retro in design, but super advanced in technology.
Agreed.
If I built a robot, it would be a retro-looking robot, but he would be as powerful as I could make him.
But I don't think those weapons quite looked. They didn't match his retro style. I'll put it that way. And they were devastating. I mean, he would have taken out a battleship. Just an amazing robot. I love him, and I love him so much. I've ordered another one.
Yeah.
That is
50 feet tall?
No,
it's
actually a little smaller than
Scale?
this guy, but his articulation is off the hook.
Yeah.
Off the hook articulation.
I think
So love Iron Giant so much.
I don't really think the Iron Giant was like a little boy as much as I think he was just a kind soul.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, there's something childlike about him.
Definitely. But I felt what Bob was saying, like there was something endearing about that character, and you just juxtaposed to this, incredibly powerful. He was supposed to be a killing machine, right? Because all the other ones were,
Right.
just-
If you look at some of the new footage that they restored to the movie, you'll see images flashing in his mind of 100 or 1,000 Iron Giants together as an army.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how devastating that could be?
all right, so let's move on. So
How about
Robbie the Robot.
maybe?
Yeah, Robbie is huge on the list.
I think we could talk about Robbie the Robot and the robot.
We can.
from Lost
They
in
do
Space.
kind of go together,
right? Don't they?
right? They do
they're-
seem to.
They are similar kind of robots. They're both have this. They're both designed at the same time of science fiction, right? Sort of they're retro in their own way.
Probably
I remember
within a
for
decade,
a while.
within a decade.
For a while, Robbie the Robot was like the robot in every science fiction
That's right.
movie and show, right?
He
'Cause
was
like,
in more than 30 movies.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Do you know why? I know why. Because
they-
Robbie was made for Forbidden Planet.
Yes.
Forbidden Planet.
Great movie, by
And
the way.
great, fantastic movie. I'm not big on retro sci-fi. As much as I love sci-fi, retro sci-fi doesn't quite suck me in. Forbidden Planet, I will watch
Yeah.
any day of the week.
It's still one of the best
still an
sci-fi
amazing-
movies of
Still
all
an
time.
amazing movie. I don't know what happened. When they made Robbie, they say, let's make this mother. They paid $125,000, which is equivalent to $1 million for this prop.
Yeah.
This was like 7% of their budget. This was unheard of. The care and dedication that went into Robbie was beyond anything that I had ever imagined. They really went to town with it. When he sold in 2017, just last year, he sold for over like $5.5 million. That was the most money ever paid for a hero prop from a movie. If you look at him, if you take a really good look at Robbie, they really went to town.
He was a great
And
robot.
don't forget this: the robots that you saw before Robbie were like walking tin cans. They were more akin. I mean, this guy's pretty slick, but they were
Worse than that.
They
They
were
were
much
people.
worse.
They were people in robot costumes.
Well,
that you
that's-
could tell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like.
But even
they-
beyond that,
Worse than that.
I'm
Worse
talking
than
literally like boxy, super
Yeah.
boxy.
Yeah.
The head, the torso. So when people saw him in the mid 50s, they were like, "Damn, what the hell?"
Yeah.
It's like a real leap, and I don't know why they put so much time and effort in that.
So they were
Is
going
he
to
still
get their money's
asking?
worth out of
They,
him.
and yeah, so of course, once you have this iconic, super expensive prop, then he was on Twilight Zone. He was on dozens and
Yeah.
scores of other TV shows and movies.
He was such a cool part of the movie as well. I mean, when he came on the sled, came speeding in. In the movie, the guys are like looking in the distance. They just see this trail of smoke coming at them.
what
and it
is
was a
that
point of
thing?
tension.
Yes.
And Robbie has such a wonderful personality. He's such a cool robot. I remember when at the very end of the movie when he says, "Aye, aye, Captain,"
Oh my God.
isn't that
Yeah,
such a
yeah.
cool? Like they humanize him in such a brilliant way. I also love the fact that Robbie can replicate molecules
Right.
in mass.
He synthesized in the movie. He synthesized alcohol, diamonds. Hello, and then he mentioned, oh, diamonds. How about star sapphires? Was
Yeah.
it? Star sapphires, for whatever reason, in this economy, is better than diamonds. But can you imagine being able to synthesize that? And the guy he can lift tons like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's 100% obedient. So when Morpheus told him to put his hand in the disintegrator, he was walking over to do it.
Right. And then when he told him to
Morbius.
kill,
Morbius.
when he told Morbius told him to kill the monster, he had a Norman coordinate moment
Yeah.
where he fried down because he
knew.
knew that Morbius was the monster,
Yes.
and he couldn't kill his master.
And how long did he know? To me, that is such an incredible question in
Yes.
that movie.
Right.
Anyway, we digress. We got to talk about that. So,
But the robot from Lost in Space, same kind of vibe, right?
B9, right? The designation
Yeah,
was
but he's-
B9, I believe.
Yeah, but they just called him robot.
I know.
Yeah, of course,
I've
he's
never
robot.
been crazy. I mean, I
He's
like
chunky. He doesn't compare well to Robbie the Robot stylistically, but he's iconic and he's friendly and he's your servant.
It is not one of my functions.
Danger Will Robinson. I mean, how it's iconic.
It is iconic, and even as a little kid, I remember thinking, he's not going very far on this
Oh, yeah.
rocky planet with those lame treads. I
I
mean,
know.
come on. But whatever, it doesn't matter. The set was nice and flat for
Right.
the
He was
robot.
good on the show.
and he was fun and goofy. And as a kid, I loved him. And when
was
I
goofy.
see him, I mean, if you grew up watching Lost in Space, he is iconic.
Yeah.
And
You
even
get the
if
warm fuzzies when you
yeah,
see him,
absolutely.
sure.
He's just a wonderful robot from our childhood. Guys, I gotta bring out my
The big
my
guns?
my
Big gun.
hero robot.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Dun, 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 dun.
All right.
What is this? What are we looking at here?
This is the Matrix.
This is Squiddy. This is a Sentinel robot from the Matrix. I
Yeah.
mean, this robot. Now, when you try to figure out what the history was for these guys, so initially, these had to be construction robots because they have, they've got like welding lasers and things, and so I think they were used for construction and maintenance. And then after the Human War, they were apparently used to pick up humans for study because they studied humans pretty intensely, especially if you saw the Animatrix.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
And then after that, they pretty much their latest assignment was to basically go through all the decaying, decrepit cities of the world and try to find the Zion ships
Right.
and humans. And they. Talking
They're
about
scary.
the Terminator, they were, for a non-anthropomorphic, relentless, evil robot, these are your guys. I mean, can you imagine this guy coming towards you? Not only does it have all of these arms, any one of them could just rip your head right off. It also can fire a continuous laser. It could use its tentacles as a shield to block its important head and brain.
That's a good question. If there's one robot in all of science fiction that you would not want to be hunting you, what would it be?
Well,
The Terminator, the
T-1000 is
Sentinel,
horrifying.
the T-1000.
Yeah.
no, I know mine.
What?
Well, are we done with this guy?
Well, wait,
And,
well,
he is gorgeous. Look at this.
Yeah.
What a beautiful, creative.
I agree. I think what we have to mention about that it's because a lot of the robots are anthropomorphic, right? They are two arms, two
Right.
legs, a head, right? But if you say, okay, we're going to design a robot to have some functionality and completely free of any preconceptions of form,
Then you
right?
come up with this, of
Right.
course.
Then you can, of course, you can have how many tentacles are on that thing? 12 or something?
I think 12.
12. You can have a multi-tentacled, multi-sensored thing.
Right,
that
yeah,
is-
look at all these. Each of these are various sensors,
Right.
and it even extends to the
wouldn't
top
you?
and the back.
Why wouldn't you have something like this? Why would you restrict yourself to a human form at all?
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
these front hands that it has, like this could be for detailed work, and you
Right.
never know what you don't know what it was capable of. And I loved how they had to blast an EMP to get rid of the three of them that were on the ship at
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
time. I mean, an EMP is a big deal.
It
Why
is.
weren't
and-
they shielded?
Yeah, you think they'd be shielded. I mean, we could shield them.
Maybe they can't be
Maybe it was
shielded.
such an intense EMP.
Yeah.
I don't know. But there's one robot that I would not want hunting me down.
Who?
Even beyond anything we've on this table or we've seen.
What is it?
Nomad.
Oh, Nomad.
All
yeah.
right,
Nomad can destroy the planet that you're
from
on.
classic Trek. I was
Yeah.
going through the stats and just thinking about Nomad in terms of how powerful he was. That dude was off the hook. Now, Nomad was a probe that was launched from the Earth right about now, early 21st
right,
century,
that's right.
right about now. I don't think there's a Jackson Roy Kirk making one of these dudes. So, and then it got hit by a meteoroid, and then it melded with an alien probe called Tanru. I think
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
Tanru.
you're right.
And
Just so everyone knows, Star Trek, the original
Yep,
series.
classic Trek. Now, Tanru had to be immensely powerful because what came out of that birth canal was Nomad, which was devastatingly powerful. Now, if you remember the episode,
Yeah. We are Nomad.
Nomad.
Sterilize.
No, even before that.
Sterilize.
Nomad shoots at the Enterprise,
Yeah.
and Scotty or somebody says that's equivalent to 90 photon torpedoes. Think about that.
Yeah.
90 photon torpedoes with one shot. Now the
From a
question,
tiny ship, though. Like what?
the question remains: how did the Enterprise survive 90 photon torpedoes at once? Kind of
Was it a shot across the bow or no?
No, it hit, man. That hit. It hit the ship, man.
Yeah.
That's how they knew how powerful
You
it
would
was.
think that the shields couldn't handle that. That's
Right.
a lot of power.
So, but apart from that inconsistency, not only could he deliver, but he could take it. He absorbed a photon torpedo. He said they shot a photon torpedo. He just absorbed it. Now remember, this is not only as an antimatter explosion. It's also the kinetic energy of a relativistic missile. That alone would like take out Connecticut type of damage. And then what else? And then think about other. You don't think about it, but I was thinking about what it did in this show. In this show, it was able to, remember when he upgraded the engines of the Enterprise?
Yeah.
He's like, it's much more efficient now. And then he also repaired Scotty, who was dead. I mean, dead to 23rd century technology, dead. He, in the blink of an eye, he repairs him.
And he wiped Uhura's mind.
And he did all this without touching anything, no physical contact. I mean, that guy, that robot is
but
an
Kirk
amazing.
defeated him, though.
Right. the power of Kirk.
You can't reason with these guys.
Yeah, that's the problem.
True,
Unless
but
you
man,
got an EMP.
There's not many
handy,
Kirks out
you're
there, though.
dead.
yeah, I still don't want Nomad gunning for me because
Yeah.
what are the chances of me out-logicking Nomad?
Well, I
That's not
think
gonna
Bob's
happen.
right because
That's a
I
good
think,
point.
especially if you had help, you know,
Give me your agonizer.
you could destroy this with modern weaponry. You couldn't destroy
No.
Nomad.
Nomad's physically invulnerable
Yeah.
to anything that we have, any
Right.
craft we possess. But he's psychological. You can get
Right.
inside his head.
But it's just funny how when you
Yeah.
reevaluate Nomad, you're like, he was like the nastiest robot of all time. I would put him up against Galactus, maybe.
Oh, maybe.
No, not Galactus. Galactus could eat Nomad. I don't think Nomad
That's
can
gonna be a
hurt
spicy
Galactus.
robot
Yeah,
for
but
Galactus.
still.
Well, I mean, I think we covered a good gamut. I mean, we clearly need to do some follow-up episodes. I think we need some of our viewers to write us in and tell us what their favorite robots are that we didn't talk about. We tried to hit, I think, some representative types of robots, but there's so much out there.
There is. I mean, we got to do some shout-outs. I mean, Wall-E and Eva, come on. What a wonderful pair of robots.
Yeah.
And that movie, Wall-E was an amazing movie. The first act there were no words.
Yeah.
And do you know who
It
voiced
was like a silent movie.
Do you know who did the voice of Wall-E? Ben Burtt.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my note. The same guy who did R2D2.
That's right.
Yeah.
Amazingly, so many emotions coming through with not one single word. So we got to Gort. Come on, Gort.
Yeah.
That's a cool
but-
robot.
I like the fact that Bender gets drunk if he doesn't drink alcohol.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Gort doesn't make my list. I don't know why I never really liked him. I think it's because he just looks too humanoid. You know,
Because he looks like a guy in a
He does.
costume.
You
Right.
see- but Gort was
you
crazy
lose a point
powerful
if
as
you look like a
well.
guy in a costume.
Yeah.
Ultron, guys, of course, Ultron.
Yeah.
Huge-
Ultron's cool in the
huge
comics, and I
history
didn't like
in
the
his-
movie.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
great
it
in
was
the
not
comics,
The
though.
movie actually soured me on Ultron a little bit, but still a wonderful robot. What else do we got here?
And you got
I've always loved the probe.
the
Yes.
probe droid.
The probe
Yes.
droid.
And you know what he
because-
says? Bing, man, I mean that. Right, Bob?
I love that.
I love it.
Because again, it was like one of the few first robots you see where it's like there's design is, there's no rules. Like you can make him have appendages wherever you want.
Right.
I just love the way he moved. It's a
Right.
very, very cool robot.
And don't forget Omnidroid.
Yeah, Omnidroid was
with
cool.
Syndrome on top. Omnidroid was a force to be reckoned with.
You don't want that thing coming after you either.
No. No.
Yeah, you really do need to be a
What
superhero to take
generation?
him out.
What iteration?
Well, it just
Well,
got it
ultimate
got better on its
iteration.
own. It's a learning computer. So if there are any robots that you feel that we missed, or you want us to cover any material that we haven't covered today, you can email us on our Facebook page. Of course, that's facebook.com/Alpha Quadrant and the number 6. And if you like this show and you want to help us keep it going, you can become a patron of ours. Go to patreon.com/Alpha Quadrant 6. Thank you guys, and may the robots be with you always.
Mwah.